People who successfully change their lives usually begin with a deep shift in mindset rather than an immediate change in circumstances. They develop an honest awareness of who they are, what they value, and why their current situation no longer aligns with their inner needs. This self-awareness is not superficial. It involves confronting uncomfortable truths, acknowledging past mistakes, and recognizing limiting beliefs that once felt invisible. A key psychological trait in these individuals is responsibility without excessive self-blame. They understand that while not everything that happened to them was their fault, their future largely depends on their choices. This balanced sense of responsibility empowers action instead of feeding guilt or paralysis, creating a mental foundation for sustainable change. Emotional regulation plays a crucial role in this process. People who change their lives learn how to sit with difficult emotions rather than escape from them. Fear, sadness, frustration, and doubt are treated as signals to be understood, not enemies to be destroyed, which allows clearer thinking and more intentional decisions. Another important aspect of mindset is the ability to tolerate uncertainty. Major life changes often involve periods of instability where outcomes are unclear. Successful changers accept that discomfort is part of growth and resist the urge to retreat simply because certainty is temporarily unavailable. They also tend to shift from a fixed identity to a flexible sense of self. Instead of defining themselves rigidly by past roles or failures, they adopt the belief that identity can evolve. This psychological flexibility makes it easier to try new behaviors without feeling that mistakes threaten their worth. Self-compassion is a silent but powerful driver of transformation. Rather than using harsh self-criticism as motivation, these individuals learn to encourage themselves during setbacks. This inner kindness reduces burnout and allows persistence even when progress feels slow. People who change their lives often redefine success internally. Instead of measuring worth through external validation alone, they align success with personal growth, integrity, and alignment with values. This shift reduces dependency on approval and increases resilience. Curiosity replaces judgment in their internal dialogue. When old patterns resurface, they ask why instead of shaming themselves. This curiosity transforms setbacks into information, making each experience part of a learning process rather than proof of failure. They also develop a stronger sense of agency over time. Small decisions become evidence that change is possible, gradually rewiring their belief system. This growing confidence is psychological momentum built through consistent self-directed action. Ultimately, their mindset becomes less about becoming a perfect version of themselves and more about becoming an honest one. This authenticity creates internal coherence, which makes long-term change feel meaningful rather than forced. Successful life change is sustained not by motivation alone but by systems of behavior that reduce reliance on fluctuating emotions. These individuals understand that discipline is not punishment but structure that supports their goals. They design habits that make progress easier on difficult days. Consistency matters more than intensity in their psychological approach. Instead of dramatic overhauls that lead to exhaustion, they focus on repeatable actions that fit into real life. This patience allows change to compound over time without overwhelming their nervous system. They become skilled at managing energy rather than time alone. Sleep, nutrition, movement, and mental rest are treated as foundational, not optional. By stabilizing their physical state, they create psychological clarity that supports better decision-making. Emotional consistency is another defining feature. While emotions naturally fluctuate, successful changers avoid letting temporary moods dictate long-term behavior. They learn to act in alignment with values even when enthusiasm is absent. Their relationship with discomfort evolves. Rather than waiting to feel ready, they act while uncomfortable, understanding that confidence often follows action, not the other way around. This rewires their association with effort and fear. They also reduce friction between intention and action. By simplifying choices, preparing environments, and removing unnecessary obstacles, they make positive behaviors more automatic. This strategic approach conserves mental energy for challenges that truly require it. Failure is treated as feedback within their habit systems. When routines break down, they analyze what went wrong instead of abandoning the process entirely. This adaptability keeps progress alive during unpredictable life phases. They develop rituals that anchor identity change. Daily or weekly practices reinforce the belief that they are becoming someone new, even before results fully appear. These rituals provide psychological stability during transition periods. Boundaries become an essential tool. People who successfully change their lives learn to say no to situations, relationships, and habits that undermine their growth. This boundary setting strengthens self-trust and emotional safety. Over time, discipline becomes less about effort and more about alignment. When habits reflect personal values, resistance decreases, and consistency feels like self-respect rather than obligation. Life change rarely happens in isolation, and psychologically successful changers are intentional about their social environment. They evaluate which relationships support growth and which reinforce old identities. This awareness guides difficult but necessary social adjustments. They learn to communicate change without seeking permission. Instead of waiting for others to fully understand or approve, they explain their direction calmly and remain grounded in their choices. This emotional independence reduces external pressure. At the same time, they seek connection rather than withdrawal. Mentors, supportive peers, or communities aligned with their goals provide encouragement and perspective. These connections normalize struggle and reduce feelings of isolation. Their sense of meaning expands beyond surface goals. Career shifts, lifestyle changes, or personal achievements are connected to deeper values such as contribution, freedom, or authenticity. This meaning sustains motivation during challenging phases. They integrate past experiences rather than rejecting them. Even painful chapters are reframed as sources of wisdom, preventing internal fragmentation. This integration creates a coherent life narrative that supports psychological stability. Forgiveness becomes part of their emotional maturation. This includes forgiving others and themselves, not to excuse harm but to release emotional weight. Letting go of resentment frees cognitive and emotional resources for growth. They become more patient with the pace of transformation. Rather than constantly measuring progress, they trust the process and focus on direction. This patience reduces anxiety and protects mental health. Successful changers also develop a long-term view of identity. They understand that growth is cyclical and that future challenges will require renewed adaptation. This expectation prevents disillusionment when life demands further change. They align daily actions with a broader sense of purpose. Even mundane tasks are connected mentally to long-term meaning, which increases fulfillment and resilience. Purpose becomes a psychological anchor. In the end, changing one's life is not about escaping the old self but about integrating experience into a more conscious way of living. Those who succeed psychologically build lives that feel internally coherent, emotionally sustainable, and deeply intentional. Life change rarely happens in isolation, and psychologically successful changers are highly intentional about the social environments they cultivate. They recognize that relationships can either reinforce old limiting patterns or support the growth of new, healthier identities. Instead of passively maintaining connections, they evaluate which relationships genuinely encourage their evolution and which subtly hold them back. This discernment often requires difficult decisions, including distancing from people who, consciously or unconsciously, reinforce fear, doubt, or complacency. They understand that social alignment is not selfish but essential for sustainable transformation. They learn to communicate their evolving selves without seeking validation or permission. Rather than waiting for friends, family, or colleagues to understand or approve of their choices, they articulate their intentions clearly, calmly, and consistently. This emotional independence strengthens their commitment to change, reduces feelings of guilt or conflict, and creates space for authentic interactions. In doing so, they also model integrity, showing others the value of acting in alignment with personal principles, which often inspires positive shifts in those around them. At the same time, they actively seek out supportive networks and mentors. Whether through formal mentorship, communities with shared goals, or peer groups, these individuals recognize the power of connection in sustaining transformation. Supportive relationships provide perspective during setbacks, normalize struggles, and reduce the psychological burden of feeling alone in the journey. They learn the art of mutual growth, offering encouragement and insight to others while also receiving guidance, creating a feedback loop that reinforces positive change. Meaning becomes a central pillar in their psychological framework. Successful changers link their external achievements to deeper values and purpose, such as contribution, authenticity, freedom, or personal mastery. This connection transforms actions that might otherwise feel mundane or arduous into steps with significance, fueling perseverance and engagement. Even routine decisions are imbued with intentionality, creating a sense that daily life itself is a reflection of their evolving values. Integration of past experiences is another hallmark of psychological success. Rather than attempting to erase or reject difficult chapters of life, they reinterpret them as sources of insight and strength. Mistakes, failures, and trauma are reframed not as permanent stains but as instructive experiences that inform wiser choices. This process prevents internal fragmentation, allowing a cohesive narrative to emerge, where past and present coexist in a way that supports continued growth. Forgiveness plays a central role in this integration. Successful changers practice forgiveness toward others who caused harm and toward themselves for perceived failures. This is not about excusing past wrongs but about releasing emotional weight that can impede progress. Forgiveness frees mental and emotional resources, allowing energy to be redirected toward constructive action and meaningful pursuits rather than being trapped in resentment or regret. They cultivate patience and long-term perspective, recognizing that true transformation is gradual. By focusing less on immediate results and more on consistent alignment with values and direction, they reduce frustration and anxiety. This patient approach allows them to navigate inevitable setbacks without losing momentum or self-confidence, understanding that life change is a marathon, not a sprint. Another critical element is their conscious alignment of daily actions with broader purpose. Even seemingly small or repetitive tasks are mentally reframed as contributions to long-term goals or personal growth. This intentionality transforms ordinary life into a series of meaningful steps, enhancing fulfillment and reinforcing the psychological sense of agency. Resilience in relationships is also cultivated. These individuals understand that as they change, dynamics with others may shift, triggering tension or resistance. Instead of withdrawing or compromising core values, they navigate these challenges with empathy, clarity, and steadfastness. They learn to maintain connections without sacrificing personal evolution, creating relationships that evolve alongside them rather than constraining them. Ultimately, successful life changers view the journey not as abandoning the old self but as integrating experiences into a more conscious, intentional, and aligned existence. Their relationships, sense of meaning, and long-term perspective all contribute to a life that feels coherent, emotionally sustainable, and deeply authentic. By consciously shaping their social environment, infusing purpose into daily actions, and integrating past experiences into a cohesive narrative, they construct lives that not only reflect personal growth but also inspire it in others, creating a ripple effect of transformation that extends beyond the self.